Looking to do more with your electric drive? Volvo Recharge plug-in hybrids travel further in pure mode. That means more scenic routes, more spontaneous adventures. Volvo Recharge plug-in hybrids do more on electric. Visit volvocars.com/US.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/SBO. Terms and conditions apply.
And there's windows in all of the doors. You know, you can see into every classroom as you're walking by. We could see into the classroom as we were approaching it to go back in there. And the room was empty, and we open the door and walk in, and Miss Updegraff looks at us, and she has her angry face on. And it's just like, okay, what just happened? Was that doorway an actual doorway for a little bit? Did we slip into a liminal space and end up walking around in the in-between for a while? You know, At the time, I was reading a lot of Stephen King, and I was reading through the Bachman books, and I had just read The Langoliers. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that story, but The Langoliers is about liminal spaces, and the Langoliers are basically demons that eat that liminal space as it's being processed through. But that's what it reminded me of, is the gray space that they were in that story, because it was just dead silent. It's so weird. And I'm hypersensitive to noise. If I say it's quiet, dude, it's quiet. It's quiet.
Because like now that we've had time to think about it, and it's something that like David and I have thought about ever since, you know, like it's been this memory that we've just both held on to. But it makes me wonder if we went through this like portal, for, you know, lack of a better word, and then we went around the school and came back in, we left the same way we came back. And when you're lost in the woods, like he talks about, where there's tracks that just stop, if you're out in the middle of nowhere, you wouldn't have known where you went across that threshold. You wouldn't know how to get back through that door, you know? So like, that's why I think, you know, David and I remember asking him, I said, what do you think would have happened if we left the school that day and not even went back to class? Like, would we have just become two missing kids?
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/SBO. Terms and conditions apply.
The history of our Earth is so different from what we can imagine.
Enjoy the journey.
The Smithsonian, if they found out about a large skeleton somewhere, was to go get it.
I'm going to assume at least one person is right, because if one person's right, it busts the paradigm. It all goes back to the fallen cherub. And the problem with the modern day church, they have a very truncated view of the supernatural.
This backdrop that's just pregnant with all kinds of meaning associated with this Mount Hermon event.
And this guy defects from the kingdom. That's a big deal.
All right, Luke.
All right,
what's it like serving the tension? Suddenly you find yourself in another dimension. This story has it all. We've been talking a long time on our podcast about these weird time events, and two old buddies reconnected. And one of the first things they asked each other after like 13, 14 years was, hey, do you remember that moment in junior high when we were like walked into an alternate reality for 40 minutes? And so we've got a bizarre story for you. It's
super interesting because it has all the elements of a lot of things we've talked about on the show, like whether it be David Paulides and Missing 411, Mike Ricksecker with the Alaskan Triangle, anything from Fritz Zimmerman and John Robert Dover and some of their weird time experiences. And It's just such a fascinating story. You know, what I love about it is you've got two guys that were in junior high that experienced the same thing together.
Yeah.
And as you said, they corroborate and had this exact same experience. So you're not having like somebody just, having their own singular experience. This is not only bizarre, but also kind of verifiable in that sense, because these two guys had something really weird happen to them. Second period portal, whatever you want to call it. It's like it's fascinating, and it thematically it's really fitting a lot with some of the things we've been talking about lately. And it's a really cool story. Never heard anything like this in sort of the context or the maybe action items of what happened here. Yeah. But it's a really it's got all the elements. Really cool story. Really fascinating. It takes everybody back, right? We were all junior high kids at some point. And maybe some of the kids listening with their parents are also junior high kids, and this happened to two guys in the early 2000s, or much younger than we are.
Yeah, I know. It's not 1992, 1993
That's
anymore.
Right.
It's just trying to figure out if you listen to. Do you like Pearl Jam or the Smashing Pumpkins?
Neither. But that was my opinion.
Yeah. No, this was great. We got a lot of fun titles in our brains creatively. What we're going to call this one, but if you want to become a member and listen to this episode and a lot of these members-only episodes, blurrycreatures.com/members. People who support the show and listen to the show come on and tell their bizarre stories, and oftentimes, we'll pick one and like, hey, that sounds like something we haven't heard before, and it sounds credible. And luckily, these two guys were able to kind of reconnect and agree to come on the show, and that's cool that you guys have shared the show enough to where people feel comfortable to come on and recant their story and spend some time in the afternoon to come on the show and talk about it. And it wouldn't happen without you guys out there supporting the show, sharing the show, telling people about what we're doing here. So blurrycreatures.com/members, hop in. You get early access to a lot of things, tickets, events, and chat rooms.
Ad-free episodes as well. So if you want to skip through the ads and let's just get a pure fire hose of juice, you can get that by being a member.
There it is. All right. Let's get these guys on and
David and JD on the show here.
Go back to junior high.